Well, college football fans, Big D back and ready to preview championship weekend as we hit the home stretch of the college football season. Before I bring in David, please subscribe, like, and share. Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page, drop Big D podcast. Join with us. The only guy who's seen a sack on a field goal attempt this year. A sack on a
Woo.
field goal attempt this year. David Moulton. David, where does the Young Wayne Kusak rank in terms of field goal futility?
None of us had ever seen it before. The Mannings on the Manning cast said they had never seen it. Aikman said he'd never seen it. Um, that's whiffing on the first tee of a major championship. I think that was unreal. That's kind of like did that just happen? My eyes were pretty sure that he just whiffed. Okay, did a field goal kicker, a professional field goal kicker? I mean, think about it. All the kids that are kicking Saturdays in the morning on game day, none of them have done that. I mean, remarkable.
Although, if you look back on the replay, this sure looked like the holder didn't exactly give Young Wayne Ku a chance.
I don't know. I mean, he didn't even follow through on the kick. If you look closely, also his head wasn't down at the ball. Okay, as he was in mid stride to kick it, all of a sudden he looked up and he was looking at the rush. So, yeah, he just choked.
And I mean, yeah, it was cold in New England, but you know what? I've seen, you know what? Lawrence Tynes kicked the field goal when it was below zero in Green Bay.
Oh yeah, no excuse. I mean, it'll probably be what he's known for in the NFL. I don't know how many more chances he'll get to kick in the NFL after that one.
Well, hopefully the kickers this weekend do a half decent job. Otherwise, it might be. Otherwise, you will be known for seeing kick sixes and a whiff.
That is true. That is true.
So,
That'll be the extremes, I think, of what you could see on a field goal.
so a Big Ten championship this weekend in Indy, Indiana, Ohio State. I'm surprised the line what it is, but going into this game, obviously you've seen both teams doing the Big Ten with CBS. Kurt Cinetti is turning into Kurt Cinetti 2.0 this year. I mean, I thought Indiana was the story last year. They're even better this year, and a lot of it's due to Fernando Mendoza.
Well, there's a lot of reasons. They're definitely better this year. They're deeper. They're more physical up front on both sides of the ball. Now, they're not as deep as Ohio State at all, but their starters are in the area code. Now, not at receiver. I mean, um, they've got Surratt and they've got another kid that are good. But I mean, Ohio State's receiving core, there's probably only 5 better receiving cores in the country, and they're all in the NFL. So, there's areas where Ohio State is clearly better. To me, it'll come down to IU's offensive line. IU has run the ball on everybody. All right. Now, Iowa kept them reasonable for a while. Oregon kept them reasonable, but Indiana's a lot more physical up front than people realize. And that'll be the key to me. Can they get anything going in the running game? Because if Mendoza's got play action available to him, all right, I think Indiana can give him a game. I really do. And Ohio State hasn't been in many games, so then that will be interesting. But also, I saw it a lot over the years when you played Alabama or Georgia. Their defenses were not used to giving up first downs. Forget points. They weren't used to giving up first downs. They didn't like being on the field for long periods of time. If all of a sudden you're stringing 2 and 3 first downs together on a drive, the Alabama and Georgia defenses used to look around like, what the hell's going on? Okay, why are we still on the field? We're used to stopping everybody, and all of a sudden you're at play 7 and 8, 10 of a drive, and they're not comfortable because they're used to being on the sidelines. And that's what I'll be. Indiana has moved the ball on everybody. They've run the ball on everybody. Their run pass balance is exceptional. To me, Ohio State until Michigan had not run the ball super effectively either. So that's what I'm most curious about. It always seems, D, as if you get into a big game and it comes down to who can run, who can stop the run. I am curious, is this going to be a passing show for both teams? If so, most likely edge Ohio State, even though the Indiana defense is good. Ultimately, those wide receivers, I think, would be too much to handle. But IU sacked Oregon's quarterback 6 times and got 13 hits on them when they played. I mean, they are much better up front than they were last year on both sides of the ball. They really are. I think this is going to be a very good game. I really think IU is going to hang. I think Ohio State's is better and deeper, but I really think IU's got a shot in this game. I really do. I like Ohio State to win, but I think Indiana hangs. And put it this, I think that the winning quarterback is going to win the Heisman.
I was going to ask you about that, but watching Mendoza this year, I mean, unlike Julian Sain, who I'm not sure has really been tested, Mendoza was tested in Eugene, and then with the crazy drive at the end of the game in Happy Valley, we know what Mendoza can do. I'm not sure he's. I mean,
also the Iowa game was 13 all in the fourth.
Yeah.
Okay, and they blitzed the heck out of him, by the way, that day, and they zero blitzed him like 16 times, and 15 of them worked. And the one that didn't, he hit the slant and took it to the house. So it's another thing. See, Ohio State hasn't had to do anything gimmicky on defense. If all of a sudden Indiana is moving the ball, because Ohio State will likely play a lot of base early and then see how it goes. But Ohio State can blitz from multiple places, okay, including safety with downs. So I think this could be a fascinating game. I really do. A great heavyweight fight. Don't underestimate how much this means to Indiana. How many times in history has Indiana had a chance to win the Big Ten? And remember, neither team is playing the next week. Okay, they're both getting buys. I mean, they are. So, this can be a heavyweight fight, and both teams can have plenty of time to recover from it before they have to play, because I think they're both going to be top 4 seeds no matter what. I think the only chance, maybe if one of the two got blown out, but I think even then they'd still remain a top 4 seed.
And plus, Bloomington's not that far from Lucas Oil Stadium, so you know how many. I know Ohio State fans travel in droves, but Indiana fans may be thinking it's all one chance to see our team play, and it's close to home.
Yeah, and when have they played in a quote unquote bigger game? Now you could argue that the playoff game last year, but you know what I mean. I mean, a Big Ten football championship, something that generations of Indiana fans never even contemplated they'd have a chance to win, and now they do.
Well, mention a lot about Indiana. How about Ohio State? Ohio State's talk about Ohio State's wide receiver, but this is the best Ohio State defense I can remember. I don't know about you.
I agree. I think this defense is as good as the 2002 national championship defense. Maybe better individually, but that team first of all, that team was vastly underrated heading into the title game against Miami. Half that team played in the NFL. It was a supremely loaded with talent team, well coached, obviously, and we saw the classic they put up in the title game. I think this is the best defense since the 2002 championship team, maybe the best Ohio State defense going all the way back to Woody Hayes.
And, although Reese looks like he could be a top 5 pick, Caleb Downs is going to be a first-round pick. And didn't Ohio State lose like 14 guys? And
And
the defensive coordinator, but Matt Patricia's done a whale of a job. And
He has. And certain guys have proven this year their coordinators are not head coaches. Dennis Allen with the Bears as defensive coordinator, not a head coach with the Raiders and the Saints. He failed both times. Excellent defensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels is an offensive coordinator, not a good head coach. Matt Patricia, excellent defensive coordinator, not a head coach. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that because in this day and age, you can make millions being a coordinator, and he's very good at it. And the guys have really responded to him. Because they all think they're playing on Sundays, and most of them probably will. And this is a Sunday guy, and they're aware of him. And so it's been a good fit. Patricia had a bad rap as a bad guy, personality, the whole deal. He's shown a different side of himself in Columbus. The guys love playing for him. Well, I did 3 Ohio State games this year. The players rave about playing for him, and they feel he's going to get them ready for Sundays, and he certainly has.
Well, if you're a top-notch wide receiver, go to Ohio State because Ohio State's produced at least one first-round receiver this year, and although one's not going to be eligible until 27, that's okay because Caldwell Tate's going to be a first-rounder this year, and then Jeremiah Smith the next year.
Absolutely. They've become, they used to be in the conversation for DBU, and they still are, but they've definitely become wide receiver U. Them and LSU seemingly produce the wide receivers and the DBs, and Ohio State seemingly is in their own league right now. It's the best wide receiving core in the country. It is. There are other good ones. USC's 2 are terrific, and there are others. Alabama's 2 are terrific. They are. But this is the best wide receiving duo in the country. And I'll say this, Sayin is a first-round pick at quarterback. Certain college quarterbacks are not. I watched Sayin in person this year. Early in the year at Washington, he was just coming into his own. A month later, he was in Wisconsin. Wisconsin may not be a good team. They're still very good defensively. And Sayin, every throw was right at the face mask. He made 35 throws that day, and there were 35 throws right at face mask. Okay, he could deliver it. He delivered it on the run. A very strong arm. He, to me, looks like a franchise quarterback on Sundays. Okay, he does. All right, now there are others who, I'm not sure about Mendoza, believe it or not. I'm not sure even, the Oregon kid's got a lot of things going for him. Pure thrower of the football this year, Sayin was the best quarterback I saw just chucking it around the lot for whatever that's worth.
I feel like Mendoza's upside's not. I know everybody's going to compare Mendoza to Justin Herbert because of his 4.2 business background, but I think Herbert's arm is better.
I also think he's a little more athletic.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Mendoza's really good. Don't underestimate those wide receivers and that tight end. I mean, that's the thing. Indiana is better than people think. If you have not seen them this year, they are not last year's Indiana. Last year's Indiana was a cute team. Last year's Indiana team was a little bit of finesse at times. This is a really good team. They're more talented in terms of their starting 22. They're a lot more physical on both sides of the ball. A lot more physical. I mean, you don't do, there are soft spots to every conference, but Indiana has blown out more teams this year than any other team in the country. I mean, blown teams out. They're doing what Notre Dame did the final month of the season. IU did that all year against, if you're in the middle of the pack or lower, Indiana destroyed you.
I mean, Indiana beat a really good Illinois team by like 50 some odd points.
Right, by 8 touchdowns. Okay, Illinois got beat by Ohio State by like 19. Indiana beat them by 55. I mean, they're better. They are very worthy of being number 2 in the country, and not just because they're 12-0. Okay, seriously. And this team, do they have the depth that Ohio State? No, they do not. Do they have the depth of some other teams in the country? Maybe not. They're starting 22. Their linebackers, I'd put their linebackers up against any linebacking core in the country. Any, including Ohio State. Texas, you name it. I'd put their linebacking core up against any core in the country. There is real talent on that team.
One more. Is the Heisman decided by who wins the Big Ten title game?
I think so. The only thing I will say is I think it was 2018, we did the SEC title game, and Tua had won the Heisman. It was over. And then Tua had a really bad day. He got banged up, pulled mid-third quarter when they were losing to Georgia, and Jalen Hurts came off the bench and saved the day for Alabama, and next thing you know, Kyler Murray's winning the Heisman. I think Pavia is the fallback here. If for whatever reason both quarterbacks struggle, they're okay, but, they're not standout. It's more of a defensive day, and 17-14, and, there's no moment for either quarterback. I think Pavia is the fallback, but I think it will likely deliver the Heisman. Very few people vote early anymore. A generation ago, a lot of people had their votes in before the conference championship games. Heismans have been decided very late in recent years, and a couple of times on Championship Saturday. I think it's going to be decided in the Big Ten title game. Okay, but I think Pavia of Vanderbilt's a fallback if both these quarterbacks are okay.
Well, you mentioned Georgia and Alabama, and some things change and some things stay the same. And I think we might as well just call Georgia instead of the SEC championship, Georgia Alabama championship, because those two teams play every year.
Well, if that's the case, then Alabama's winning because Georgia doesn't win this game. All right. And that's why it's funny. The Georgia fans I know are torn between they don't want to play this week because they don't want guys to get hurt and, they're seeding and all that. But then it's also like, man, I can't lose to Alabama again. I mean, if you think about it, you go back, Kirby has beaten Bama, once? And it was for a natty, but Alabama's 2-star receivers were out hurt that game. I mean, Alabama did not have the weaponry to beat that excellent Georgia defense, and Nick knew it, and Kirby knew it. And so, this will be interesting. Can Georgia win the damn game? I mean, seriously, can they win it? And at some point, if you're Georgia, you got to beat Alabama. I mean, even you get a bye if you do. You may not get a bye if you don't. I don't know if that's important anymore because you'll probably be the 5 or the 6 seed and you'll have a really good matchup in the first round. But if they're going to play this game, you might as well win it, especially if you're Georgia. I think Alabama's in, even if they lose. I don't think the committee is prepared to punish a power conference school for losing in the conference championship game. Like, right now, Notre Dame, D, is the team that's on the bubble based on the rankings that came out Tuesday night. And if BYU were to upset Texas Tech, there's seemingly only, one debate, okay, is the committee has to drop somebody out who's currently in if BYU upsets Texas Tech. They're going to drop Notre Dame out, who's the team on the bubble, but we all know they're Notre Dame, or they're going to drop Texas Tech out for losing the Big 12 title game. Last year, SMU lost the ACC title game. They did not drop them out. They kept them in the playoff at the expense of Alabama. Okay? So because if the committee ever severely punishes a team for losing in the conference championship games are over. They're done.
Right.
Now, the fans may be sick of them and want to start the playoffs this week, but the conferences want the money. The networks televising the games want the game and the money. And this is ultimately a TV show, and it's done for money. So I don't think these games are going anywhere, even if they don't have the meaning that they did just a few years ago. But, I mean, it seems, D, as if the playoffs have been decided, and there's really only 2 questions. If Duke upsets Virginia,
all hell's going to break loose.
Right. Is the ACC literally going to not have a team in the field? And it looks as if they won't, although the committee could still put Duke ahead of James Madison, the likely Sun Belt champion
And
winner.
then if Troy beats James Madison, my head's going to explode. Then maybe Boise UNLV would make it.
Well, if Troy beats James Madison as a 4-touchdown underdog, all right. But that's on the bottom of the committee. That's what they have to decide. If Duke upsets Virginia, is the ACC out at the expense of the Sun Belt champion? Or if BYU upsets Texas Tech, then who's out? Texas Tech or Notre Dame? But I don't think there's really any other decision that the committee is going to make. The committee has seemingly said to Miami, you may be 10-2, Notre Dame may be 10-2, you will have beaten them. We're not picking you. I think that's been established.
Could it be? I'll save for the middle top. But going back to the SEC, I don't think this is Georgia's team from a few years ago. I mean, I think Gunner
Agreed.
Stockton. I think Gunner Stockton's good, but Georgia's been in these games and typically against non-Alabama teams, Kirby Smart almost always wins them. Just ask Texas. But I'm intrigued to see how Gunnar Stockton reacts. I mean, he came off the bench to replace an injured Carlson Beck in last year's game, so he's been in this game spotlight. I just wonder whether or not Kirby Smart and Georgia's facing like what Ryan Day and Ohio State facing Michigan. Like, how do we escape the 1-7 against that team?
Yeah, I don't think it was as big as what Ryan Day and Ohio State faced last weekend, though. I don't, because in a strange way, Georgia has won 2 national championships in the last half dozen years. So it's not as if it has completely ruined their season. In Ohio State, they truly debate whether or not the national title from last year was more than the loss to Michigan. Okay, that's how painful that game is. It's not the same with Georgia, Alabama as it is with Ohio State, Michigan. I just think that you're right. This is probably the worst Georgia team of the last 6 years, which shows you just how damn good Georgia's been. They only had 270 yards offense last week against Georgia Tech. Alabama's running game has been non-existent. These two teams, while still at the very top of the sport, are not quite what they have been in the last 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. I think a part of that has to do with you can't keep the depth that you used to be able to keep because kids want to play and they'll get paid to go play elsewhere. I mean, just look at, think about it, D. Vanderbilt just won 10 games for the first time ever. And Indiana's gone 23-1 in the last 2 regular seasons.
And BYU's 11-1.
Yeah, and BYU's 21-3 the last 2 regular seasons. And Texas Tech, has the best roster in the Big 12, and it's not debatable. I mean, the talent is getting spread out because the money is everywhere, and you're able to buy rosters. And so it's tougher to keep the depth that you were able to hold on to in past years if you're these elite programs. It's why Ohio State has to be given a ton of credit. They kept the depth in place last year, used it to win the Natty. Look at their roster this year. There's a lot of people that think their team next year could be better than their team this year. Okay. I mean, what Ryan Day has got going on right now is as impressive as anything going on in the sport. And quite frankly, watch the team that IU puts on the field next year. I mean, this Cignetti guy is something. And I like the fact that, Cignetti could have used Indiana to go somewhere else, a la Lane Kiffin, but no, he stayed. He's going to do what he does, and he'll say, thank you very much. He's in his early 60s. I mean, he's probably got 7 to 10 years. He's going to give it to IU. He's going to do what he does. He'll get his statue, and, he'll ride off into the sunset. There were some of us that were hoping that Lane was going to do that in Oxford, and, well, at the end of the day, he's Lane Kiffin.
Meanwhile, for Alabama, Another crazy Iron Ball. Maybe for Alabama, the magic number at Jordan Hare is four. 4 overtimes, 4th and 31, and then another fourth down decision by Caleb the Bull. I mean, why should we ever be surprised with the Iron Bowl?
Well, with the Iron Bowl at Auburn. Okay, the game at Auburn is different. I mean, I was lucky enough to be a part of about 17 of them, and there were a couple of really good ones at Bryant-Denny.
2010.
Seemingly every one at Jordan Hare was amazing. The last five in particular, Auburn's 2 and 3. They've had a fourth quarter lead in 4 of the 5, and they were tied in another one. So if you think about it, Auburn at home has been tied or in the lead in the last 5 Iron Bowls at Jordan Hare, and they're 2 and 3. I mean, Nick Saban, if you watch him on game day, he doesn't speak of anything like he speaks of having to go play at Auburn. I mean, he truly feels it. He's used the word spooked, jinx, horror house, the whole deal. I mean, it's the one thing you can count on every 2 years. If the game's at Auburn, it's going to be terrific.
Yeah, and watching this Alabama team, I am concerned about Alabama's offensive line and running game. It looked like Ty Simpson was getting the tall beat out of him last week, and I'm not sure how he's going to. I mean, Auburn might not, and Auburn's 5-7. It's not a great Auburn team. How is he going to recover? And I mean, yeah, Ty was great against Georgia a few weeks ago, but how is Ty Simpson potentially without the running game going to beat Georgia?
Well, he had the same thing 6 weeks ago when I went to Athens, and they put 27 on him in the first half. This is something that is not being talked about enough, in my opinion, D. Kalen DeBoer against the Nick Saban defense. And by that, I mean Nick Saban to Kirby Smart to Dan Lanning. When Kalen DeBoer was at Washington, he had no trouble against Oregon. When Kalen DeBoer has been in Alabama in a short period of time, he's had no trouble with Kirby in Georgia. Okay. He's got that defensive scheme, the Nick scheme, if you will. He's got it figured out. They can score points against that defensive scheme better than anybody. And they've done it every single time. If you look at like the last 6 times he's played either Lanning or Kirby at Washington or Alabama, he's lit them up for 400 plus yards offense every time and 27 plus points every time. So that's something that, for whatever reason, he's got it figured out when no one else consistently does. Listen, I think they have the second best wide receiving core in the country. Simpson can obviously chuck it. All right. Their pass blocking when it's not 3rd and long is good enough. They do not have a good, consistent running game. They don't. They're easier to beat than they've been in past years. It still doesn't mean they're not a top 5, 6, 8 team in the country, though.
Yeah, and hopefully Ryan Williams is out of the witness protection program because he did nothing in the Iron Bowl.
Listen, the game at Auburn is a different game.
It's a haunted. Jordan Hare is a haunted house.
Just say that. I wouldn't come to conclusions about Alabama teams and Alabama players based on what you saw in the Iron Bowl. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So before we mention the other big Power 4 games, there've been all kinds of shenanigans. I mean, Lane Kiffin going to LSU. Even today, we found out that Brian Hartline, the Ohio State OC, is going to become the new coach at South Florida. I think Alex Golesh is what the coach of South Florida. There's
Golesh went to Auburn. The Memphis coach went to Arkansas.
The
Summerall went from Tulane coach to Florida. Right. So.
And Penn State's still left without a coaching job.
Yes, they are, which is remarkable. They claim they had a deal with Sataki, and then BYU's two biggest boosters got involved. The president of the university got involved. I mean, he's a 50-year-old who went to BYU, and I guess he had a few issues with what was going on. They got to him just in time. He told them, I need this fixed. I need this fixed. And they said, we'll fix it. And here's the money, and please stay. So he's going to be long-term at BYU. And yeah, Penn State, Jimmy Sexton's the agent of the Stars. He's angry at Penn State because they fired his client, James Franklin, and he feels they humiliated him the way they went about it. And he has basically made sure that none of his clients will accept the Penn State job. And so, now they're left with hiring somebody who clearly they didn't want. Do they go down the Matt Campbell of Iowa State, PJ Fleck of Minnesota? Are they waiting for somebody in the NFL? I don't think Dable's the answer. I mean, it's early signing period already underway. This year's recruiting class has been destroyed. And, we'll see where they end up. Now, listen, they've got money. And there's a rich, fertile recruiting ground in Pennsylvania. The class of 2027 is supposed to be exceptional. So if they make a solid hire and they give that coach the money that he needs and a year's worth of time to hit the ground recruiting, they can recover from this in very quick fashion. But short term, Penn State's going to take a big hit. And they are the loser at the ball, so to speak, in the coach's carousel.
Yeah, looking at Penn State's schedule next year, maybe Penn State won't have a head coach until Big Ten play, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I'm curious if it goes so badly that they end up having to promote the interim.
That's what I'm thinking, like what Michigan did after Harbaugh left.
Well, that was kind of arranged, but then there's the fallback when we've tried to hire 11 other guys and we promote the interim. And that's what would be going on here at Penn State.
If you ran college football and could only change one thing about the sport, what would you change?
If I ran college football, I would get rid of the conference championship games.
Ooh.
And I would start the playoff this weekend, whether it was 12 teams, whether it was 16 teams. I have 2 weekends in December where the NFL cannot compete with me by law, literally by federal law. The NFL cannot play games on Saturday the first 2 weeks of December. I need those 2 weekends to play my playoff games, where I don't have the NFL as competition. I can use Friday nights. I can use triple headers on Saturdays. I can play games this weekend and the following weekend, and I can play my first 2 rounds of the playoffs, if you will. I prefer 12 to 16 for what that's worth. Think about it. We'd have absolutely no debate this year if we had 16. The 4 extra teams would be BYU, Miami, Vanderbilt, and Texas. There would be no discussion, no debate. I've seen enough of those teams. I could argue 1 or 2 of them should be in at the expense of other 2, but I can live with good teams being left out every year. I can. So you asked me one thing, one change. Okay, I'd either move the season up a week. So if everybody wants to keep their conference title games and I can't get rid of those, fine. But first weekend in December, the playoffs are starting. So however we do that, either move it up a week or get rid of the conference championship games. But the first weekend in December, I'm keeping it at 12. I'm playing my 4 playoff games. And then the following weekend, okay, I'm doing the same thing. I'm moving it Army Navy to noon. I'll give it an exclusive spot. All right. But then I'm going to play, that Friday and Saturday, I'm going to play 4 quarterfinals. And by the way, the quarterfinals also will be at home. Okay. The top 4 seeds, I know they get buys, but they should also get a home game. That's worth millions. And let's face it, this is all about money now. So I'll combine that into one. I'll first weekend in December, we're going to have the playoffs, and the quarterfinals are also going to be at home.
I like the way you're thinking, and then everybody can be together for Christmas, and then and then we can have the semifinal games, whether it be New Orleans or Pasadena,
Right.
Miami.
New Year's Day. Right. Pick, rose, orange, sugar, whatever you want to do. Pick two of the sites. If one of them's the Rose Bowl every year, fine. So New Year's Day, we'll have two semifinals, 4 and 8 o'clock Eastern. And then, then pick whenever they play the Natty, they play the Natty. The second thing I would do, by the way, is all the windows, the transfer windows, the early signing windows, and what have you. They all would be after January 1st.
Yeah,
You can't have all of this happening right now.
I've got one thing. Coaches, whether it be assistants or head coaches, cannot leave for another position until their season is complete.
I don't know how you can do that. Okay. Legally, I don't know. Legally, I don't know, especially assistants. I don't know how you can do that.
Here's how. Here's how. We're going to go back to one signing period, and the transfer period will be after the season's done.
Okay. All right. I still don't know how you could do it. It's kind of like signing a lease, and then 2 months into the lease, you get another job in another state. Are you really still obligated to the lease? Okay. I just don't know. I don't know, but I don't have a big deal about the assistants. The head coach. Okay. I mean, listen, most schools work it out. Most schools, it's not the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss situation. Which, that doesn't happen very often. We've been doing this now just a few years. How many coaches are the head coach of a team in the playoff and they're leaving?
I think Brian Kelly left Cincinnati for Notre Dame before Cincinnati played Florida in the Sugar Bowl, but that's
right. But it wasn't part of the playoff. It was just a January 1st game. It was a big game for Cincinnati, and you're right. He did leave and he went to Notre Dame, but it wasn't part of the national playoff picture.
Yeah. It's just the only good thing for Ole Miss is that Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be the play caller if and when Ole Miss makes the playoff, and I think they'll get a home game.
Yeah, with the last rankings that came out, they're in line to get a home game. Can I ask this question? Never mind the fact that, what they did to Florida State 2 years ago once Jordan Travis got hurt. You mean to tell me Ole Miss losing Lane Kiffin is no big deal? Because they didn't punish Ole Miss at all. I thought they're big on what a team looks like now entering the playoffs. If you have a key injury, if you're not the team you were a few weeks ago. So they lose Lane Kiffin, who was their play caller, by the way. Charlie Weiss Jr. was not their play caller. Lane Kiffin was their play caller. Don't kid yourself. So Ole Miss loses Lane Kiffin, and apparently there's no difference in how good of a team they are. In fact, they may be better off than they were the week before.
No.
Right. I mean, this is the part of the committee that drives all of us nuts. I would rather have a committee than the computer. I just need the people on the committee to be smarter. I do. There's too much politics, and it's too obvious. I mean, the fix is just in too many instances. And if they're going to do that, then I'd rather have the computer again. Okay, because at least the computer is not going to be biased. Now, we may debate the info that's put into the computer, but the computer itself is not going to be biased. I mean, we got things going on right now that cannot be explained. They just can't.
I mean, it's not like Texas A&M lost to Grambling. Texas A&M lost in Austin to its biggest rival.
I can, though, believe it or not, if you're going to say that Ole Miss, if Lane Kiffin were still there, I'd understand Ole Miss being a spot ahead of A&M. They have the same record, having played in the same conference. Ole Miss's loss was at Georgia. That's number 3. A&M's loss was at Texas. That's number 13. Best win, A&M won at Notre Dame, number 10. Ole Miss won at Oklahoma, number 8. I can, by small margins, have Ole Miss ahead of A&M, But Ole Miss is not the same team that they were. They lost Lane Kiffin. Okay, so
I thought A&M was going to be in front of Ole Miss, and when I saw the ranking last time, I'm like, wow, the committee didn't downgrade Ole Miss at all.
and you may think, oh, it's not a big deal. It is. Look at who Ole Miss is going to host. They're going to host either Virginia if they win the ACC, or if Duke wins it, they're going to host the American Conference champion. Okay, whereas look who the 7 seed is going to host. They're going to host Notre Dame. Okay, so the difference between 6 and 7 is huge as to what your first round playoff game is. That's why if you're going to do this, you got to be on the up and up. And I don't think, quite frankly, that they are. I think there's too much political crap going on behind the scenes, and that's not right.
And
I don't think.
And by the way, how can the mini chair say like Alabama, and you've done more Iron Bowls than I can count, but how can the committee chair say, yeah, we're gonna give Alabama credit for a road win? I know Jordan Hare, Horner played, but didn't Notre Dame beat Stanford by 4 touchdowns?
Okay, I was saying for 2 weeks that Alabama should have been ahead of Notre Dame. Yeah. So I think the committee finally got the ranking right. But the fact that they waited 3 weeks in to slide Alabama ahead of Notre Dame, their justification just wasn't there. It wasn't. 3 weeks ago, when Alabama suffered their second loss and it was time to rank the 2 lost teams, they should have had Alabama a slot ahead of Notre Dame. Okay. Now the reason they did it is they didn't want to put Alabama on the bubble, okay? Because this is now the second year in a row that potentially Alabama could have been knocked out of the playoff. You know, Alabama loses to Georgia, and then BYU wins, and Alabama's out. Okay, the committee wanted to make sure that a team in the SEC championship game is going to be in the playoff. And so that's why they had to move Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. They should have seen this coming 3 weeks earlier.
Seems weird. Seems like $1 late and $1 short. But you know, Alabama should have been in front of Notre Dame. I mean, Alabama beat Georgia and Vanderbilt. Notre Dame's best wins against Southern California.
Well, also, I mean, let's face it, the committee seems to weight really good losses this year better than big wins.
If that were the case, Texas is in the playoff, but if the committee ranked good wins, but that's a story for another day.
But I will say this. I mean, Texas was very fortunate to beat Kentucky and Mississippi State late. Yeah. Okay. And I do think the people that are pounding the table for Texas, I mean, come on, guys. You were very fortunate to beat 2 bad teams. So you may be 9-3, but you had moments this year in which, I mean, let's face it, the home crowd booed Texas off the field at halftime twice this year. Twice. Okay. So come on now. I mean, is that really a playoff team? I don't think so. But yeah, there's a lot of issues at play here. Did Texas ultimately get penalized because they played Ohio State? Yeah. Which then, therefore, do we play the Ohio States of the world going forward? You know, I would say to the Miami people, it's a good thing you played Notre Dame and won, because otherwise would your resume really be even playoff debatable if you don't have the Notre Dame win on your schedule? So, you know, it's an imperfect sport that's always been based on opinion. You can go back to the opinion of the AP writers, the UPI writers, you name it. This is a sport unlike any other in America. It's based on opinion. So that's why you're always going to have the chaos and the controversy that you have.
Yeah, and you know, in March Madness we've got bubble, and on Saturday there were a couple bubble teams. One of them, it's funny you call BYU a bubble team sitting at 11, but BYU beats Texas Tech, and the Cougars are what, a 12.5 point underdog in Arlington. then BYU's going to crash the party.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I'm pressed for time here, but it's like college hoop where you have the conference final where the one team that's in it, you think, well, they're in it even if they lose, but the other team, even if they're a good team, knows we're not getting in the NCAA tournament unless we win this game, and that's BYU. BYU knows they're going to be on the outside looking in again if they don't beat Texas Tech. Which is why, in my opinion, D, the Big 12 and the ACC should have taken Tony Petitti's offer at the beginning of the year. Tony was the one from the Big 10 that said 4-4-2-2-1, 16-team playoff, 4-4-2-2-1-1, and the Big 12 and the ACC would at least get 2 teams every year, and they sided with Sankey and said, no, let's have the bids be up for grabs. The last 2 years has shown that the ACC and the Big 12 are going to be on the short end of the stick if all the bids are up for grabs. Okay, I think we're going to get to a 16-team playoff, but if the Big 12 and ACC each only get 1 team this year, I think they may switch their votes and vote with Tony Petitti instead of Greg Sankey.
And it's funny I'm saying this, but the best team in Texas here is Texas Tech.
Could be.
Spent the money.
Could be. And for those of us in Florida, D, we could only hope one day that Miami, Florida State, and Florida can have their acts together like Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and Texas, who are ranked 4, 7, and 13 in the polls. Okay? I mean, I'm longing for the days of 25 years ago when Miami, Florida State, and Florida were all Miami, Florida State, and Florida.
Yeah, who would have an ACC championship game, Duke, Virginia, where if Duke wins, all heck is going to break loose?
Well, never mind the fact that Duke and Virginia are in this game, but with unbalanced conference scheduling, and if the conference has an awful tiebreaker rule, you get what you get.
By the way, didn't Manny Diaz used to coach Miami?
Yeah. And he could win an ACC title at Duke. And I wonder then if he does, will he get the Penn State job?
He was the DC there.
That's why I said I wonder if he wins, if he'll get the Penn State job.
By the way,
D, I got to run. I really have a commitment.
Oh, thank you for joining me, David. We wish you well. Safe travels to Eagles Chargers this year, and hopefully we have healthy quarterbacks.
Yes, and if we don't talk, happy holidays. Merry Christmas.